Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 5th, 2019 Muscatine City Council meeting. Cinda, will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Spread,
Present.
Harvey,
Present.
Brockert,
Present.
Saucedo,
Present.
Brackett,
Present.
Fitzgerald,
Here.
Malcolm,
Present.
7 present, 0 absent.
Thank you. Will you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I'd like to start tonight's meeting by swearing in 2 new police officers. Would Michael Shumps and Mitchell Griffin please join me at the podium? Let's see if we can get this to work. Please raise your right hand. I, Michael Shumps,
I, Michael Shumps,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions
that I will support the constitutions
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Iowa,
and the state of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties of police officer
discharge all the duties of police officer
in the city of Muscatine, Iowa,
in the city of Muscatine, Iowa,
as now or hereafter
as now or hereafter
required by law.
required by law.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Please sign right here, and then right here, and then wait patiently for Mitchell, and we'll have you shake council's hand. Mitchell, please raise your right hand. I, Mitchell Griffin,
I, Mitchell Griffin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions
that I will support the constitutions
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Iowa,
and the state of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of police officer
of police officer
in the city of Muscatine, Iowa,
in the city of Muscatine, Iowa,
as now or hereafter
as now or hereafter
required by law.
required by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please sign here. Could you pose here for a quick photo? Congratulations to both of you. Would you please go around the front of the podium? Council would like to recognize.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Officer Shump and Griffin. Welcome to Muscatine. We appreciate the service that you will provide for our community. Thanks also to their families. We are going to continue with tonight's agenda, and next we're going to have Leadership Muscatine presentations. Adam, are you going to get the ball rolling?
I sure am. Mayor, council, thank you once again for letting Leadership Muscatine be present in council chambers tonight and introduce themselves to you. The 2020 class brings us up to a total of 712 Leadership Muscatine participants over the 32 years that Leadership Muscatine has been active. So a number of community leaders and community citizens have come and gone and been active in Leadership Muscatine. So it really has been a great asset to the community, and a number of wonderful community projects have been completed by past classes. So what I'm going to have them do is they're going to come up and introduce themselves, their names, where they work, and then they're just going to give a little snippet of their community project that they plan on working on this year. And then we'll have time for any questions, brief questions, when they're done introducing themselves. All right?
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Guys, however you'd like, come on up. All right.
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Brian Morgan. I work at Carver Pump. I am working with the Friends of Muscatine Facilities Improvement Fund. Our main goal is we're raising money to put in a new turf at the Muscatine Community Stadium and a scoreboard. We're working with members of the school, other business members in the community. If you have any
Very good,
questions.
thank you.
Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Y'all come up as a group. So this
Big
is,
group.
This is our group. There's 5 of us. My name is Greg Slonka, and I work at Muscatine Power and Water.
My name's Adam Miller. I work at First National Bank.
My name is Winnie Lamb and I work at GPC.
My name is Eric Reed. I work at Muscatine Power and Water.
And Rachel Reed, and also Muscatine Power and Water.
So the project that we're looking to do is some rehabilitation and some beautification at the Muscatine Arts Center. They've got an art studio that they use for children and for some of the adult painting programs, and they're in need of some shelving and some cabinetry and possibly some other updates to their facility. So that's the project that we're chosen to do.
Very good, thank you.
Hi, I'm Bailey Schober, and I work for the Hahn Company, and I'm going to be partnering with Iowa State University Extension Office and working with a 4-H program or doing something with ag in the classroom for elementary students. Haven't decided yet, but that's the direction I'm going.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Hashem Jaber, and we've got a few others coming. I work at Bayer, and the project we're going to be working on is the amphitheater at the riverfront.
Very good.
Everybody else?
My name is Matt Shear. I work at GPC. Good evening, Mike Loxner. I work at Bear Corporation, also part of the Riverfront Project and the amphitheater.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Morgan Thorson, and I'm with Family Eye Center.
Erica Hayes, I'm with Unity Point, Trinity Muscatine.
And together, we're going to be working on continued improvement of the trail system in Muscatine.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lieutenant Greg Bach. I'm the officer in command at the Salvation Army, along with my wife, Lieutenant Elizabeth. And I am in between the amphitheater project and looking at drug court services, sobriety court services for Muscatine County.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alan Cole. I'm with Temp Associates.
Blaine Booth with the Hahn Company. What we'll be working on is enhancements to the Kent Stein facility, looking at batting cages, pitching mounds, any field improvements that we may be able to make there as well.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jacob Bauer with Becky Insurance and Principal Financial here in town. I'm actually joining just on a few different groups that you've already heard from today.
Okay. Thank you. Some wonderful projects.
Any other questions, Mayor, Council?
Thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Certainly. We are going to continue on with tonight's agenda. We are on number 5, the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda.
I had an item I wanted to remove.
Okay, go ahead.
From the, actually from the bills, there's an item at the end that I think is not appropriate for tonight's discussion, which would be payments, possible additional amount for approval if council would terminate the city administrator's contract at the December 5th meeting. Has a total dollar amount of $203,817.64. I think that would be better suited for a following meeting.
Can you repeat that amount? $203,000?
$203,817.64. which then brings the total bills to $2,009,826.21.
$2,900,000.
$2,009,826.21.
I'm missing a number. Say it one more time.
2,009,826.21.
Got it. Okay, so with that being removed, do I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, which includes items 6A and B, items 8A through I, items 12A through E, and tonight's bills totaling $2,982,026.21. Did I say that right?
No,
All right, give me that number again.
2,009,000, because you said 900.
Oh, I see. I got it. There was an O in there. That was my problem. I wasn't getting it. All right. $2,009,826.21. Third time's the charm there. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are moving on down to 11A. We have tonight presented for City Council's consideration the second reading of an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Muscatine, Iowa to rezone 32.78 acres of land located at the southeast corner of the United States Bypass and Mittman Road intersection from agricultural development to M1 light industrial. This zoning change would allow for the development of a Love's Travel Stop and Country Store at this location. Do I have a motion to approve the second reading of this ordinance as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Fitzgerald with a second by Councilman Saucedo. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I understand the concerns of the neighbors. I also have heard some negative input from some of our local citizens. I have a nephew who's worked for Love's for 15 years. So I sent him an email this morning and I got this back from Matt. Love's really is a great company to work for. I have a 401k that they do match some, and I get $40,000 or so a year in profit sharing. Lots of opportunities with the store, restaurant, and tire shop. I have taken minimum wage kids off the street that now manage a concept. Community outreach kind of depends on the manager, but it is greatly encouraged and is in the budget. I think we are starting part-time benefits next year with some vacation. I have heard that we can fly the flag, but very vaguely. I haven't pursued that so much because I would be scared we would desecrate it in some way. It is a great family company. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any, oh, go ahead.
I have a question that's probably going to go to Andrew. Do we know how far along the traffic study is, or has it started or begun yet?
Mayor, council, I've been informed that they're intending to submit to that, both the state and the city tomorrow. So we
Thank
will
you.
have it for the next meeting on 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Oh, please. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name's Annette Losi, and I live at 2603 Mittman Road. I'm one of the concerned citizens living on the road that's might be impacted by this truck stop, this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week truck stop right at the intersection of Mittman Road and the bypass. And again, thank you, Mayor, City Council, for giving me this opportunity to air my concerns. And I want to say, Nadine, I know she's sort of for this because it might be good for the city as far as financially, but it's not that we don't want a truck stop at all in Muscatine. It's just that we don't want a Love's truck stop or any truck stop just on our residential road and right off the bypass. Would any of you want a truck stop within 200 yards of your driveway? Any of you? I don't think you probably would, and that's what will be for my sister and I. We're going to have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week trucks, 365-day-a-year truck stop right by our home. Consider the safety issues as well. We already have a construction company, a logging company, and a truck mechanic shop within a quarter of a mile of the intersection, generating heavy traffic and safety concerns. There has been accidents just with those. So this having a truck stop would just aggravate that situation all the more. Also, I know they talked about that the traffic study will be done, but can you continue to do those readings and approve things without this? Because isn't that an important part to know what the safety issues may be for this?
This reading that we're working on is only to look at the rezoning.
Okay.
That's the only thing that we're doing right here. And this is just the second reading. We have one more, which will be in 2 weeks.
Okay, but if it's rezoned or approved for rezoning, if it doesn't pass, does that mean the rezoning doesn't go as well? That's what I've been told, is that the rezoning would not pass if the truck stop if that doesn't pass. Is that correct?
That's the way I understood it. Andrew, this rezoning doesn't have, it could happen anyway, even if the truck stop doesn't go in there.
Because it just doesn't seem fair that it's going to be rezoned, so then more things will have the opportunity to come without our say, or, it's just going to make it more and more easier. This is just going to push it to allow other things to happen. It just doesn't seem fair. I was told that if it didn't go, that the rezoning wouldn't go as well. It wouldn't pass, but you're telling me.
Well, we're going to hear from Andrew. Why don't you go ahead and ask any questions that you have, and then we'll have him come up and answer them all at the end.
Okay, well, I think that's the only question I have at this point.
We'll have him come up and clarify that.
Plus, also, I wanted to let you know that it's not just me and my sister and a few. We have a petition here with around 80 names right now, and we will have more next week. But I want to let you know that there are people that do have concerns that don't want a truck stop, right there on the bypass off of a residential road. So I don't know if
you can
I
give it to him and pass it.
And just look at who has signed that. So again, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Losi. We appreciate you coming down. We'll get some more answers here from Andrew.
But I just hope people that talk to your ward people, those that are listening on TV, and that just let your ward people know how you feel about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, could you help clarify there?
Mayor, Council, I'm not entirely sure I understood the question, but so 2 things is, in 2 weeks, you'll have the third and final reading in front of you, which would be the final up or down vote on the zoning, which would allow for a truck stop. In terms of the traffic study, in terms of allowing that to go in, they would have to make all those recommended approvals, or they would not be given the permits to build. I don't know if that answers.
So the zoning allows them to go in there as far as we are concerned, but they still have to get it approved by the DOT.
Well, in terms of land use,
Right.
that's not the only city approval. I mean, there's the site plan approval process. So the zoning, which establishes the range of land uses that would be permitted in that location, that would be resolved. Which in all these, that has to be the first thing. Then it kind of goes down to the more specifics, which the traffic study is a big piece of. But you will have that to look at that when we get that tomorrow. We'll share it.
Sure.
And so then that's part of the site planning process, where you don't, until you have an approved site plan, you can't pull a building permit, and the traffic study gets built into that. So,
Councilman, did you have a question?
I think my only question was what her comments were, is that if hypothetically the traffic study came back negative, would the rezoning still keep it potentially rezoned for future use, maybe another gas station
Then
comes
y-
in, or a
if-
different business. I think that's really, what she was trying to clarify.
That ball will be in you, the council's court, because you will have that traffic study in front of you before you vote on the third and final reading, where it has to pass all three readings, or it's the same as a total.
And I think
no.
that's probably what will answer, I think, her question from what I understand. So, once we get that traffic study, and then we can review that coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you.
I got, Andrew, I was under maybe the misconception that if it was rezoned for this particular project, that if they didn't build or start within a year, it would revert back to the original zoning.
Not unless you condition.
I
the
don't think
rezoning.
so.
I mean, you could initiate a rezoning to take it back to agriculture,
Okay,
you know,
but
but
it doesn't
it would
happen.
require
Okay.
further council action.
Okay.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else, Councilman Fitzgerald, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
The motion carries. We're on 11B. Presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution to approve the plans, specifications, form of contract, cost estimate, and setting a bid opening date for the Second Street reconstruction project. A public hearing regarding this project was held at the November 21st council meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Spread. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Harvey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We're on 11C, and we have a request to accept the city's comprehensive annual financial report and audit for the year ending June 30th of 2019. Is there a motion to approve this request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
We have a motion by Councilman Fitzgerald with a second by Councilman Saucedo. Is there any discussion?
It was me.
It was you. Councilman Spread seconded it. Any discussion?
Just a comment that when we went through the audit itself, and I wanted to just recognize the actual audit group that had come back with what they call an unmodified opinion, which is confusing for me at first, but honestly what that means is that it's a very clean audit, that everything came back with no audit findings, and another consecutive year from that audit form and what they had done. The team also does reach out to the audit group and have them look for specific items, as we did, and the team came back with very good feedback. So I encourage that we look at this group maybe in the future to potentially continue to use that audit firm moving forward in the next upcoming years. That way I think we may have discussion or put it on the agenda maybe for the last week of this month. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
Anyone else?
Just that there were three of us on the audit committee, Santos, Phil, and myself. We've done it a number of years. It's exemplary work. The city staff did a great job, and the audit firm confirmed that, so well done.
Big thanks to everyone. Hearing nothing else, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. We're going to move on to 11D. We have a request to approve the goals and objectives for fiscal year 2021. Council and staff have both met and worked on these, and I wonder, do we have a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
Second, Your Honor.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Brockert with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. We're now on 11E, and we have presented for City Council's consideration a request to approve an amendment to the City of Muscatine's purchasing manual policies for procurements under federal grants. City staff has been working with FEMA and Iowa Homeland Security staff for the 2019 flood damage assessment, and they are requiring that certain provisions of the federal procurement standards be included in each government's procurement policies, and that those policies adhere to and reference the specific section of Title II of the Code of Federal Regulations. The attached amendment to the city's purchasing policies for procurement under federal grants will satisfy this requirement of the federal grant program. Do I have a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Your Honor.
We have a motion by Councilman Harvey with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sure.
Go ahead.
What specifically changed, or was there anything really that changed and just defined more things?
There are no specific changes as such. It likely, the regulation changed a couple of years ago. For all our federal grants, we follow the policies, and some policies are applicable to certain grants and not to others, but they hadn't been formally incorporated into our purchasing manual, and the FEMA folks, they,
They wanted it
until-
documented that we
they
were going
want
to
it.
follow it.
That's one of their requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. We're on 11F. Presented for City Council's consideration is a request to approve the issuance of a purchase order to Foster Coach in the amount of $85,591 for the purchase of a 2019 Type 2 ambulance. 2 bids were received, with only one meeting the specifications and needs for the department. There's $85,000 in the budget for this purchase, and the remaining $591 would be absorbed in the regular ambulance operating budget. Do I have a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second, Your Honor.
We have a motion by Councilman Fitzgerald with a second by Councilman Brackett. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have no idea what a type 2, type 1 ambulance, is this like the one we have already, or we're using? I don't know what that is.
No worries. Battalion Chief Ted Hillard, Muscatine Fire. Okay, what we have right now is you see our ambulances, our modular ambulances with the big boxes on them. They're a sturdy ambulance. What a Type 2 ambulance is a van chassis. It's a more comfortable ride for a patient going long distances. So when we take a patient from Muscatine to another county, to another hospital, it's a more comfortable ride for them in an ambulance.
It's probably more fuel efficient, too.
It is very more fuel efficient, yes.
Okay, I got that now. That's not like, what is that? Okay, thank you.
So, just one question.
Go ahead.
The attachments then that we just purchased for like the lift at the back for the automated deal and all that stuff, I don't know even know what it's called. But
Yes, sir. It's an auto lift for helping the
For
cot
helping, for
into
the,
without having to
for the
lift.
crew, when you guys are lifting up patients and whatnot in there, is that then another adder that we'll do after this? once
No,
we
this
get
ambulance that we have will actually go from facility to facility. So it won't be going from a patient's house or a car accident or something like that, where we'll have more people to help get it into the ambulance. So it won't be, it won't need that assist with it.
Doesn't have this, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Good?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing else, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. We're on 11J. We have a discussion and possible action on ending the city administrator's contract. This item was tabled from the November 7th meeting. Councilman Brackett, since this was your request to put on there, I will ask for you to start the discussion.
Sure. One question for city attorney first. If I have 3 parts to this, should that be 3 separate motions?
Yes.
Okay. So address one motion, vote, address the second motion?
Yes,
Or-
sir.
Okay. So my first motion would be to immediately terminate the city administrator's contract.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Saucedo. Councilman Malcolm, how do you vote?
won't there
Oh,
be
I'm
any
sorry, any discussion?
That seems appropriate here.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Yes, there is. I do have several comments to make about this entire process. I have a concern that we deferred this conversation because the annual evaluation was not complete. It remains incomplete. Now, 5 of you voted in favor of performing that evaluation. You voted in favor of spending public funds that were not budgeted. To date, I think it's about $33,500. So I think you should speak to the folks about why you're willing to do this without completing the evaluation. So that is one of my concerns. The position of the city administrator is a difficult one. He's not going to please everybody at all times. That's a given. And he does not respond to the concerns of any one of us as an elected individual, as an elected official. He has to respond to all of us. He responds to council action, not individual action. And I think my concern is what's driving this is his responsiveness to some of your individual concerns. So I look at this historically. I've been on the council 8 years. I've been through the evaluation process 7 times because the 8th is not yet complete. We met a year ago, November, I believe it was, down in the council conference room to talk about this. Not everyone participated. Not everyone fully completed their evaluation.
I'm going to point of order, though. That was a closed session. We can't talk about that.
Is that the case?
If it occurred in closed session.
It occurred in closed session.
All right. We'll leave that out of this then. 2 years ago, 3 new council members were seated. And the night you were seated, you came up to the podium and you made a recommendation to the then sitting council that you thought the city administrator should be placed on administrative leave. That was done in open session. Now, the concern I have about that, and it may be a moot point today, is that the 3 of you acknowledged that you met privately. That may be a violation of public meeting law. I'm not certain. We'll leave that alone for now. But it tells me that you made up your minds before you ever worked with the guy, the city administrator. I have a concern about that.
Would you like me to address that one right now?
No.
Okay.
We'll let him finish and then.
3 years ago, we went, I believe it was 3 years ago, again, we were going into this session, and those of us who were on the council at the time were greeted at the door to the conference room by the mayor and some of our more ardent supporters. One of them was Max Kaufman, one of them was Jim Meredith. The other person, I think I know his name, but I'm going to leave him out of this because I don't want to misspeak. But they blocked our entry to the conference room and clearly tried to intimidate us from doing the evaluation. So I have a concern about where this has all gone in the last several years. I just don't think it's right. Now we have a person who is not here to speak for himself. I don't know if he will or not. He is out on family medical leave. I think we have to respect that. I'm concerned that by taking this action tonight, we risk exposing the city to further financial risk from potential litigation. Those are all huge concerns of mine. So that is where I'm at it. I'm going to oppose this motion, and I think it should be tabled at least until the evaluation is complete. And to that end, you're going to have an issue that 3 of us who've been working with him for the last year and have been involved in the evaluation process will no longer be seated as council members by the time you finish the evaluation. So will you be inviting us back to help? I don't think anybody's given any thought to that. So that's what I have to say tonight.
Thank you, Councilman.
Okay,
Councilman
so
Brackett, would you like to respond?
I'll address the first item, which was the evaluation process that we hired a consultant to develop for us. That was a process that we can use moving forward for any city administrator. The existing process was essentially a self-report, here's how I did, and was not something that I found professional, which was why I brought it forward as a motion to hire an outside consulting firm to assist with developing that. So the brunt of that expense was in that development process. We still own that, so that I don't see as wasted. As to the question about the 3 council members, the 3 people who are currently council members who came to a council meeting prior to being sworn in, But immediately after, the city administrator filed a lawsuit and requested that while that lawsuit was active, he be placed on leave. I don't see a problem with that. But that, it was in direct response to the lawsuit that he had filed, not anything else at the time. And we were not sworn in council members at the time either.
I think you were sworn in but not seated yet, but.
No,
No.
based on the date, no, we weren't,
Okay.
so.
Well, I believe, was that everything? It was my understanding, if I could chime in, that we hired the we purchased an evaluation tool for the position of the city administrator, not necessarily for this city administrator, but we purchased a tool moving forward that council can use to evaluate that position.
Well, and to Tom's point, though, he does have a point on some of that. There was a portion of that which is that the evaluation is not complete yet, and that there was time and dollars spent on that portion
On
of it
that
as well.
portion.
So for complete transparency, absolutely, that you are accurate on that. But the majority of the funds that were involved in that process were in the development process of the process itself, of that tool.
So again, why rush to do this when the evaluation is not complete? And I'd like to hear from the 5 of you that voted to do it.
I have no further response on that tonight. I've said what I've got to say on that.
Does anybody else have any discussion? Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. I entirely support the concerns that have just been raised, and I would also submit that we seem to be wanting, or the motion is, we terminate immediately, but there's been no discussion or information presented as to back that up as far as why should we terminate it immediately. As Matt pointed out in an email that I sent to everybody, is that if you're going to terminate Greg at this time, you better have your T's crossed and I's dotted as far as time, dates, what he did that deserves his termination, and because, as I recall, that's kind of an offshoot of state law. Is that correct, Matt?
Well, specifically, the law says when you remove someone from office. So to Councilmember Brackett's point, there'd have to be a number of different motions. The contract is one phase. To remove him from his role as city administrator, you'll have to state the reasons for that, and then we file that with the clerk, send it to Mr. Monsager, and he has 30 days to request a hearing to respond to those charges. So yes, we would have to do that to comply. It's Iowa Code 372.
Well, and I also object to the fact that we're being asked to vote to terminate, and we haven't been provided any reasons why we should terminate. I would hope it's just not a personal beef with the administrator, but how did he fail in doing his duties that he was hired to do? He has been, in my estimation, and this predates my term on council, he has been doing an exemplary job leading the city for the last 10 years. And all of a sudden, that's no longer the case? I don't believe it.
Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to make an additional comment, because I've obviously been here for his entire term. We have, for the last number of years that he's been here, we have done evaluations, whether certain members of council didn't like the tool we were using. That tool had been used for 25, 30 years and was used very successfully, in my opinion. We had one city administrator here for at least 20 years. Greg's been here 10. For those 10 years, and we can't speak to the evaluation that's incompleted, but all the other evaluations were successful, and he ended up with additional pay increases. So obviously there wasn't an issue. I personally believe there's a personality issue with a couple council members and the city administrator, and it's not direction of council that he was in violation of. It was a personal issue with a couple council members. So I personally, at this point in time, I would have no intentions of voting to remove Mr. Monsager from as city administrator.
Is there any other discussion?
So I'd like to comment on this as well.
Go
too.
ahead.
Go ahead if you want to finish up.
As well, not as I recall, we, earlier this year, mid-year, at the first part of the year, let's put it that way, the council raised some issues with Greg as far as they like things that he either wasn't doing or wasn't.
I'm going to
quite-
call point of order again.
It's
That was
closed session.
Closed session.
We can't talk about that.
Can't talk about what happened in closed
I
session.
may not be able to
Okay.
answer your questions either because my answers may be closed session items.
Sorry.
So,
The fact that we had more than one meeting on his evaluation was public record, but what we were talking about in those meetings is not allowed to be discussed. Did you have anything else, Councilman? Councilman Saucedo?
So this motion is to not renew the contract and to terminate the contract. Under the language, from what my understanding is that there's no requirement for council to provide job-related reasons to terminate the contract. That is our responsibility. If we feel that the current contract is not something that I am favorable for, and I think the change needs to be coming, that is our opinion, and based between the lens that I see how the current contract is written. As far as the comments that were made in regards to the actual review and his performance and whatnot, we've had multiple meetings in regards to that. So I'm just going to comment in regards to, obviously, we can see that we had to do it multiple times because of the feedback and request of that feedback from the city administrator. But under the language, we do not have to provide job-related reasons to terminate the contract. That was the wording given from the attorney.
I would like to answer Phil's comment, or I guess
Go
it was
ahead.
a comment about having this been a procedure that we've used for so many years. I stand by something I've said before, which is that just because we've always done it that way is not a good reason to continue doing it. So it was a flawed process.
And my other feedback on that too is we requested the 360 feedback because that form that asks questions like, am I funny? Things like that, is just absolutely non-productive in my feedback. No department heads are included in any of those.
Yeah.
I would
Well,
be careful.
I'm just
on
saying that
Tool
the
was-
the tool,
I
the
don't
way
know.
that
The tool is
mechanism
open.
is written out in feedback form is just a basically feedback that needs to be modified. So the process of it being a feedback form and a tool that we can continue to use for future city administrators, because the change of city administrator contracts and the way that those we want to continue to look at utilizing that form that I think that the CETA provided for us. I'm very satisfied with that. It's just.
And I understand that the contract says we don't have to give cause. It still makes no sense to me that we do this without seeing the results of the evaluation. We all know there's a 360-degree
Which is-
evaluation laying there.
Correct.
None of us have seen it.
Thank you. Councilman Malcolm, did you say you had something?
No, I just found it interesting that everybody was talking about this evaluation process, which I think I was the one that was insisting that we use new tools and techniques to get a better picture of what we were supposed to evaluate, because, like I said, for somebody I only see once a week, and it's normally sitting in this chair, and I see emails from them, I have no idea what they do with the city personnel or what other people say and how the department heads are flowing and the system is operating. So I find that interesting, but I agree, we have not seen the evaluation of the company that we've requested to perform this tool for us. But I also know that if I walk in AT&T and tell them I no longer want to have a contract with them because I want to go and get me a new telephone provider, I don't have to tell them anything other than your contract is over with, I'm going to get somebody else. And that's the end of that discussion with me. So that's all I have to say about this, I think.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no other discussion? we're not going to do public input tonight on this particular topic.
We're the taxpayers.
I understand.
We have no idea why the city administrator is being terminated.
Sir, this is not appropriate. Chief? Chief? Hearing no other discussion from council? Councilman Malcolm, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Nay.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Me.
Councilman Harvey?
Nay.
The motion carries and the city administrator's contract is ended effective immediately. We are now on number 13. We need, Councilman.
Mayor,
I'm
I
sorry.
believe Councilmember Brackett had two other motions.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, go ahead.
So my second motion then is to, and this will be followed by one that goes along with it. My second motion is to appoint Rich Climbs as the acting city administrator immediately. And just so you know what's coming next, is to schedule a meeting with an interim, a person that does interim administration, but that'll come next. So my motion is to immediately appoint Rich Climbs as the acting city administrator and to act as the assistant city administrator to in future hire to get them on board, whether that be a temporary or permanent position.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Harvey, how do you vote?
Is there-
Oh, I'm sorry, any discussion?
Yeah. I'm at a loss here, and I have nothing against Rich Climbs by any means, but Jerry has been functioning in that role for over a month and a half now. Why would we change that? Things seem to be going fairly well.
That would be for the same reasons that I expressed last time. And I feel that having, and also nothing against Jerry, but I do feel that having, currently we have a dual role. There was a dual role.
Which makes no sense.
I agree. There was a dual role left in place when the city administrator, when the former city administrator took his leave. He left two people in charge. I attempted at a following meeting to change that. We did not. We ended up leaving it as a dual role, but changing it because having the finance director being an acting city administrator does not make sense. Nothing against the finance director, but that is not a role that should be combined. And I also feel that, Jerry's role is public safety. So that's my opinion on that, and that's what I've got to say about that, because I expressed quite a bit on the last time we discussed it.
Any other discussion?
Just,
Go
I
ahead.
was concerned in regards to this situation as well too, just because my understanding is that we're still in contract negotiations with the firefighter group. And I didn't know if that was a concern for my group in regards to union concerns. And I knew that was something that we had discussed, and so I was just kind of concerned. That was the only reason why I feel I would be in favor of that. But I do feel that Jerry has done a tremendous job and has extreme knowledge, been through every budget, so I also am in favor of just in regards to that. I just want to make a comment to that.
Hearing nothing else, Councilman Harvey, how do you vote?
Well, since we apparently had terminated Greg, I have no objections to Rich being acting administrator, so I'll vote yeah.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Nay.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Nay.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
The motion carries, and Richard Climbs is the acting, or the interim city administrator.
Okay.
Motion number 3.
The final item was just that I would like to schedule a meeting to review of the council, and that whether that's a meeting or just at the next council meeting, to review the offer that was put forth by Mark Aronson as well as if there's any other offers that Mr. Brick would like to bring forward to us at that time. But that one I felt was appropriate and suitable, and so I would like us to discuss that at the next meeting and potentially accept that offer.
At the in-depth meeting?
I think that would be a good time to have that discussion, yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
You want to read the motion?
Yeah, I move that we schedule a meeting to review the offer put forth by Mark Aronson through Matt Brick to act as interim city administrator at the next council meeting, which is the in-depth session, and potentially accept that offer at that time.
So why don't you just put it on the agenda for the next meeting and when they discuss it then?
Well, when I've asked for agenda items in the past, I've had opposition and had to take a vote to get it done.
But you've just nominated and appointed Rich Climbs. That's surely not going to disappoint you.
Well, then I would ask for consensus on this item.
Without a vote? Do we have consensus to put it on the in-depth meeting to talk about hiring Mark Aronson as our interim? Nadine, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
Councilman Harvey, Councilman Saucedo, Councilman Brackett, we have consensus.
Your Honor, I have a quick question. Did I understand that during that time, the city attorney would also solicit other candidates and submit it to us for consideration?
I have reached
Yeah,
out,
he has.
the answer is yes, but I've reached out to all the names that have been provided to me from all of you, and Mr. Aronson was the only outside candidate that actually responded. So outside of those names of either current or former staff here, Mr. Aronson would be the only other name. But if there are other people that you are aware of that you would like me to reach out between now and then,
How about
please.
the League of Iowa Cities?
Iowa
or-
League of Cities.
What?
Well,
But the question is, do you want, what you were asking was something very specific, someone who doesn't want the job necessarily permanently, but who wants to fill that
Temporarily.
role.
Right.
What you would be talking about long-term, would be hiring a
that'll
company.
be a search.
And there are, I don't want to say this, but there are very few people who are retired but still able to handle a city like Muscatine. For example, Mr. Sandor was one of the names that had come up. The mayor, I think you had mentioned someone from this side. There were a lot of good names that were mentioned. I'm not sure that there are a lot left I haven't contacted, but I will certainly reach out to the league and see if they have any names that have not been contacted yet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. We're now on number,
And
I'm
if I
sorry,
could,
go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Since Councilmember Brackett said he had 3 motions, I will say you have canceled the contract, but to remove him from his position, legal has to file something with the city clerk, putting him on notice and giving the reason. So I'm not sure how to fill that document out yet.
Okay, if you want, if we, my reason right now, if I need to present one at this time, I didn't know if I needed to do that at this time or at a following meeting of some kind, but
Well, I should say it this way, if the intent was to both cancel the contract and remove him tonight, we would need to state the reasons tonight, and then we can
Tonight.
get the letter on file, and that starts the time periods rolling.
Let me ask the question. Since he's also the city clerk, how do we get him to send himself a letter?
Well, if you remember, he appointed 2 people as deputy city clerks. More than you guys want to know about municipal law, but my recommendation would be that that gets filed with Jerry Evers, not Rich Climbs, because he's the interim city manager. Jerry Evers was designated as one of 2 deputy city clerks.
Okay.
As a practical matter, we have to do that with civil service, and Stephanie Romanoli and I usually just file stamp it in the finance office, because that's the only place that actually has a file stamp in the city. So it would be filed with the finance office, because there is no other fancy file stamping system.
So wouldn't the letter say, you no longer have a contract?
You could say that, but the law requires us to give the reasons. If that's the reason that you guys want
Canceled
to
your
give,
contract. We just canceled your
I'll put
contract.
that in there.
No, my reason for making the motion is lack of confidence in his duties, his ability to perform his duties. I mean, there's been numerous issues that were in public meetings where majority of council ruled one direction and he continued to push a opposing direction repeatedly. So that would give me lack of confidence.
Okay.
So that is one of 7 opinions.
But, and I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, Councilmember Spratt. So your motion would be to remove him as an appointed city administrator for that, for
For
the
lack of
reasons you
confidence.
just stated? Okay. That's what I,
That's what you needed?
yes.
Okay.
And then a second, and then a discussion if that's the will
Sure.
of the council.
Yeah, and do we need to state then in this, the process that needs to be followed then, that would be normal, what I would see as normal employee process when somebody is terminated, removal of access from, from the property, from any electronic means, retrieval of any city property, that type of thing, credit card, computer.
I would think that would fall to the HR director and the new interim city administrator.
Okay, I just
take
wanted to
care
make
of.
sure if it needed to be in a motion that I included it.
Well, if you don't specifically identify what you do, the default position would be to handle it like every other employment termination.
Okay.
Are you saying that the city clerk, in Muscatine, the city clerk and the city administrator's position are one and the same? So those will transfer all to Richard Climbs then, right? But you think since it hasn't, since Jerry was already the city clerk, that tonight he should be the one to fill, is that what you're saying?
Well, the letter just has to be filed by the city clerk. So I'm saying, just out of an abundance of caution, if Chief Evers is the one who puts the letter into the file stamping document, then there's no concern.
Then we
because
should, okay.
He was designated deputy city clerk.
But then the understanding is that Richard Climbs is the city clerk from then on. That's what I was
He would be the interim city administrator. There is a slight difference under the rules, but for all practical purposes, the person who'd be running the city is the interim city administrator. There are
It's also the
other
clerk.
issues involving the clerk, and that's why the city city administrator appoints a deputy city clerk when they're unavailable to do their duties. Because it's a slightly different role. But as a practical matter for what you guys are doing, you're correct, Mayor, that it's essentially one and the same.
So it'll move on all to Richard Climbs.
The duties will move on.
The duties will move on.
So then my motion would be, and you're saying it has to be worded as removing from the position?
Yeah, it's, the section of the code's 372.15, and it just says, any removal of an appointed position, whether there's a contract or not, you state the reasons, we file it with the clerk, we send it to that individual, and then they have the right to request, essentially, a hearing in front of the council to respond to the reasons that were given for the termination.
Okay, so then I would request that Greg Mansager be removed from the appointed position of city administrator for the reason of no confidence.
Okay.
Does that fulfill everything you needed?
Well,
I know
mean,
we have to go on, but is that statement?
if more reasons than that, I would say whatever the reasons were for the vote, we would want to list them all, because then from now on, like Councilmember Spread said, if this ends up in litigation or something else.
Council, you keep dancing. Contract's over with. Can we move this along?
No, if you move it along, you're in violation of the Iowa code.
So no confidence is what you're saying?
Well, if I could finish.
Okay, please.
If you don't list the answers now, and there's a civil rights claim or a lawsuit filed, you can't come up with anything else after tonight. So you need to say what the reasons are tonight so we can send it in the letter. That's what the law requires.
Even if they're criminal offenses.
If they're criminal offense, yeah, you need to.
You can't bring them up later, that's what you're saying.
Well, the question will be asked, and again, I'm the city's attorney, but
Ethics violations
I'm
or
assuming.
anything that you just
You
throw
have
that
a
out
reason
there.
to believe a crime is committed?
No, I'm just asking if you're saying if there's things that were potentially out there that you don't know, and you're stating that you can't bring that up later, you're basically stating that if we don't say everything,
Correct.
and then you
If
come
you're
back,
aware-
then you're not able to provide that and bring that into a
If you're
court of law.
aware of something and it's a reason you're voting to let them go, we should put it in the letter. If you learn of something later, that's a completely different matter. But if you know something, and like, for example, Councilmember Brackett saying, there's a confidence issue and there's been, you know, a disagreement at council and things haven't been let go, those are things you know of now, and we'll put those in the letter. If there are things like you mentioned, if there was a criminal issue that you didn't learn about until later, that had nothing to do with you letting him go tonight. So you wouldn't need to bring up something you don't know about.
Okay.
Okay.
But again, to Councilmember Malcolm, the contract is terminated, but we have to, because his position's an appointed position, you have to remove him from the appointment, because you don't, under law, have to have a contract to be an appointed person.
Understood. Councilman Brackett, did you want to add anything else to your motion besides no confidence?
No, I mean, that covers everything for me. It
Okay.
does.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Councilman Malcolm?
Don't we have a discussion?
Oh, I thought we already did, but if you
No,
want to
we
say
haven't
more,
had a
go ahead.
discussion. I have a question for Matt, then. Is simply saying lack of confidence, is that adequate?
When you say, is that adequate, that's a reason, and we'll file it with them. Adequate for the code, you know, this is Iowa, so there's like one case on this code section. So, I mean, if you've identified the reasons, and Councilmember Brackett has, I don't know how you say that wasn't the reason, so.
Any other discussion?
Just that I'm going to go on record as saying I'm an obvious no vote, but I refuse to let any one other opinion speak for me. I have not lost confidence in Greg, clearly. He's functioned well for 10 years. I've had no trouble working with him, getting the information that I need to properly represent the citizens of Muscatine, and I'm opposed to this.
Thank you.
I
Anyone
would
else?
Echo the same sentiments.
Thank you. Councilman Malcolm, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Nay.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Nay.
Councilman Spread?
Nay.
The motion carries. Thank you. We are on number 13. So Councilman Brackett, at the beginning of our meeting tonight, asked to have an item taken out of tonight's bills. We are in the regular sequence of where that would be now, and would you like to address that, or, and
Sure. On that particular item, while his contract stated that we would need to pay that amount in a lump sum, it did not state when, so I felt that it more appropriate that we push it not have it on tonight's agenda and look at it at the earliest at the next meeting. Did I misunderstand anything in the contract, Mr. Brick, that you would be aware of?
I don't think there's a specific time limit that when it needs to be paid.
Right.
To answer your question, I look at it the same way you do.
There would be, because there would be property that would need to be returned and things of that nature. I know in any job that I've been in where I've left and had, you know, any kind of benefit payment due, you know, I don't get that until after, you know, that's not approved until after I've gone through the process of leaving that position. So to me, it did not make sense to pre-approve that particular part.
I suppose there should be some documentation as well of all the numbers and where they came from?
Yeah.
Supporting documents?
Yeah, there's a supporting document that has a summary on on tonight's bills. It has vacation hours, sick hours, things that in the contract do state that any time that as much as is earned can be accrued, and as much as accrued will be paid out upon termination, even though that is completely different than what all the other city employees have to go under. So hopefully we could look at a different contract process moving forward. But it did not state that we needed to pay it out upon termination, but it does need to be paid in a lump sum.
Well, to be clear, it doesn't have a date, but it does say severance shall be paid to the employee when employment is terminated.
Okay.
So it does say that, but to your point, if you would like the opportunity to have the detail for finance to prepare for you at the next meeting.
I would be interested, due to the large number of accrued hours in both sick and vacation, to see some kind of summary. I mean, as to how that adds up to those numbers. It's pretty high. It's an unusually high number in my opinion.
So are you making a motion to ask staff to bring,
Yeah.
or someone to bring to us at the next meeting a summary of those charges
Yes.
before payment?
And before payment, I also would like, I would like to see the entire process complete and all property returned and make sure that part has been taken care of before we issue payment.
So you're making a motion to get more information on this at our next meeting?
Yeah,
Prior to
I'll
payment.
state it as a motion.
Please do.
So I move that the payment, the payment for the termination of the contract be withheld until the termination process has finished. At this point in time, it has only been directed, it has not been completed, and that we have all city property returned prior to that, and that we have a breakdown that we can see at the next meeting of what is actually being paid out with detail, not just a summary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
We have 3 nays and 4 ayes, so if staff would please prepare that summary, go through all the processes of the termination, and put that on the agenda for next time. We are down to number 14. Councilman Harvey, did you have anything additional tonight?
You bet. Since there are a number of people in Muscatine who will take objection to what just happened, I want to read into the record an advisory that was sent to council before this meeting tonight regarding the possible termination of Greg's employment. And she says, by what Patty said, it was the person contracted to provide the evaluation procedure that got basically canceled. Anyway, she had already met with, as I understand it, all the department heads, mainly the city staff people who reported to Greg. So she has an understanding of what he was, what the thoughts against or for him were. She said, I urge you to strongly consider the short-term and long-term effects of terminating Greg's employment as highlighted below. And one of the highlights is, lastly, and as importantly, your reputation, meaning the city of Muscatine, your reputation will make it nearly impossible to attract good talent for the city administrator's position, as well as any leadership role that the city of Muscatine may have in the future. So this is going to come back and bite the city.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Spread?
Nothing more this evening.
Councilman Malcolm?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilman Saucedo?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Councilman Brackett?
Nothing further.
I just have a few things. Oh, I'm sorry, staff, did you have anything tonight? I just had a few things. I would like to ask for the traffic committee if they could take a look at, I've had a great deal of citizens reach out to me about the parking at all of the schools during concerts and special events, but primarily on Jefferson School. So what's been happening is when there's a concert or a Christmas program and they run out of spots to park, and we have people that are of varying abilities, people are getting a lot of tickets there. And this last week, the principal of Jefferson paid for all of the parking tickets for the people who had came to watch their children and grandchildren. And I just wonder if maybe that we could take a look at, maybe there's a better way, a different system that we can use. Certainly, they want to make sure that everything is fair. Are we just ticketing during Christmas programs, or are we also ticketing during all of the other events at the Performing Arts Center? I mean, nobody wants to get a parking ticket. Certainly, that's the thing that makes people, it's like the old-fashioned busy signal that we used to get. Instantly, you're irritated. And I just want to make sure that we're doing our best to make the process work for everyone, certainly being mindful of safety. We know we have a fire lane there, but if there's something that we could do, maybe there's another idea that we haven't thought of. So if perhaps the traffic committee or somebody could take a look at that, reach out and just try to be responsive to the citizens if we can. Next, I'd just like to remind everyone, the holiday stroll is tomorrow night. It's a long-time event that Muscatine has so much enjoyed getting out and spending time with their friends and neighbors. We are kicking it off with the tree lighting ceremony at First National Bank right there on 2nd Street. And it's a great event, and it's a good time for us to all get to spend time together. So if you can make it out to the holiday stroll, big thanks to First National Bank, to the Journal for all the hard work that they do on the holiday stroll, certainly to the Chamber and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So let's get out and spend some time together if we possibly can. Next week is our in-depth meeting. It starts at 7 right here in this room. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time and attention. I'm sorry, the time for comments has already stopped. Is there something I can help you with?
Just the rezoning on Midland Road. I didn't make the first meeting.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what's going on.
Sir, we talked about that at the beginning of the meeting tonight.
Can I just ask a couple of simple questions?
What I would, since we're already past that part on our agenda, I would ask that you speak with Andrew Fangman, our city planner. Is he still here? He left. Or Jody, pardon me, Jim. Okay. Jim, right up here in the far corner, if you could talk to him, and this will come up again in 2 weeks. We'll be talking about it again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Excuse me, when was the time for public input tonight?
So,
I never heard it.
you know what? It's at the time when I was doing the swearing in, and I probably left that off.
You didn't invite anyone to speak.
I understand.
That's speaking out of order, okay?
Well, the topic that you wanted to speak about, sir, I was not going to allow public comment on tonight. So even if I had, it would have been a moot point.
So it's on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a member of the public, typically you say you can't talk about that because you need to do it in the agenda. Well, if it's on the agenda, you say I can't speak. So I'm back over here in the public input and you say I can't speak. I mean, when do I speak?
You speak to your individual council members on this particular topic. I was not going to allow public comment. We are talking about an individual here, and I'm not going to allow any kind of discussions about an individual in a public meeting like this in that way.
I'll just say that your process is
I understand. Thank you. And sir, I'm sorry, we did have discussion on Mittman Road. I didn't see that you were trying to get up here and talk after Ms. Losi, perhaps. I didn't notice that.
So if I come to the next council meeting, are we going to discuss it more?
We will, yes, there will be, this was the second reading. There are 3 readings for the rezoning. Tonight was the second. There will be 1 more.
It just seemed like everybody was really unclear on what was actually going on, whether the rezoning, if it didn't pass, what was going to happen.
So Andrew got up and explained that at the end.
But he said that he really wasn't sure. He wasn't.
I didn't understand that. The way he explained it was that, okay, but Jim Edgemond is our city engineer right up here in the left-hand corner. He will take your questions tonight, and we welcome you back here 2 weeks from tonight. This will be on the agenda again. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.